sleep, use our mouths to eat food and to drink water that replenishes our mind, bodies, and souls. Few of us remember the blessings of these capacities or of the simple sunrise. But if the sun did not rise, well, then we would be most grateful to have it return. Likewise, if we lose our ability to eat, then some of us will remember to be grateful. But on the day-to-day basis, there is so much grace in our lives, so much beauty, joy, and harmony with all of nature, we tend to forget the extent of this beauty. One of the important spiritual practices of meditation, or muraqabah, is focused on the concentration on the breath. Each time we breathe in, we breathe out. This goes on thousands and thousands of times all throughout the day. But unless we are instructed to do so by a spiritual practice or ritual like meditation, we tend to forget that we do not pass a moment without breathing. Yet, how important it is to think about that breath, to stop and focus on the breath as it flows in and out. We replenish our entire being with each breath and at the same time affirm our ultimate relationship with all the workings of the universe. Because the universe, like our breath, is always in motion, always in synchronicity with its own purpose. Thus, even our breath is among the many gifts which Allah has given us as agents on the earth. So the idea of Khalifa is the idea of moral agency. It means individually we must continue to grow until we are mature and responsible. It means collectively, as the Quran says, fil ard, which is about everything that makes it possible for us to exist on this earth. We are responsible for everything that happens. What happens in family, what happens in community, what happens in our country, what happens in the world, what happens in the environment, what happens in the universe, all of creation becomes our responsibility. There are some Muslims who like to say terrorists are not really Muslims, or others who say terrorists do not know true Islam. The implication of these statements might need to be explained. On the one hand, all human beings can only know so much of the divine will. Even when we do our best with our actions and our understandings, it takes a certain humility to accept that we can never know the true Islam, or that we can understand what it is for Islam to be true, or anyone to understand any other idea. This idea is very similar to the logic of the terrorists. It's either my Islam or you are not true. The other idea, that terrorists are not really Muslim, uses the same exclusivist logic that terrorists use. Sometimes, in our desire to distance ourselves from such actions of violence done in the name of our religion, we imply that we have no responsibility towards terrorists. I look at this differently. If we are truly Khalifa, then we are also responsible, not only for good Muslims, but also for terrorist Muslims. Furthermore, we are responsible not only for Muslims, but for all human beings on the planet and for all creation. How do we demonstrate this responsibility to terrorists? There are 3 stages to this responsibility, and these will lead me to talk about the names of Allah. Stage 1 is education and nurturance. We must raise all children with love and honor and teach them moral responsibility. The word tarbiyah comes from the attribute of Allah that is Rabb, Lord, caretaker, or nurturer. To raise all children with tarbiyah means teaching them with love and through our own good example. It also means directing them towards responsibility. Stage 2. If we have failed at that, then we must create justice in society. That is, we must take more responsibility to eradicate poverty, clean up the environment, nurture diversity, and engage globally. But finally, stage 3, I take directly from the Prophet Muhammad when he said, you must help your brother or sister if he or she is doing right or doing wrong. So the companions asked, how do we help them if they are doing wrong? And he, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, said, you must prevent them from doing wrong. We cannot and must not abdicate responsibility for eradicating terrorism and dealing morally and legally with terrorists. And we must not fear to do this or fear to say that we will do this, because indeed they play upon our fears, and that makes them all the more successful. Speaking of the attribute of Allah as a Rabb brings me to the discussion of the 99 names. With us, the name of everything is outward appearance. With the Creator, the name of everything is inward reality. In the eyes of Moses, the name of his rod was staff. In the eye of the Creator, the name was dragon. In brief, that which we are in the end is our real name with God. From Rumi's Mathnawi. According to the Quran, Allah has the most beautiful names. Lillahi asma'ul husna. We are then commanded to call upon him by those names. But for Muslims, some names are better known than others. What I want to examine with you is the idea that this gift of 99 names should be appreciated and developed to the furthest possibility. I also want to share some ideas about the use of certain names that can help us explore the potential for Muslims to be rightly guided, to contribute more greatly to the healing of the world, to the growth and development of what I call khilafah, or agency on the earth, as stewards or moral agents. Say, invoke God or invoke the Most Gracious. By whichever name you invoke her, she is always the one, for hers are all the attributes of perfection. Surah Al-Isra, chapter 110. I just want to point out that in Bahasa Indonesia, there is one word in the place of 2 words in Arabic and 3 words in English. He, she, it in English, huwa and hiya in Arabic, and dia, the tawheed of languages. I use all 3 of these pronouns in English, not to make Allah male or female, but as a function of language and the limitations of human languages to express the far reaches of Allah's perfection and divinity. Although we believe the Quran is the word of Allah, I agree with those who say that Allah's complete self-disclosure is never possible while we are here on the earth. That is because, like the divine attributes, Allah has both the aspects of majesty, divinity or godness, uluhiyya or jalal, and it has the aspects of relationship to us as human beings and to the rest of creation, rububiyyah or jamal. If we look at any list of the 99 names, we see that some names describe Allah with regard to that majesty, jalal. With regard to these, we can best understand our role as servants of Allah. Here is where the Quran reminds us to observe the limits. Failure to observe the limits in regard to our relationship in society, that is, our relationship to others, is the same as the satanic logic of Iblis in the creation story. Satanic logic means to think that we are better than others and that all others must do our bidding. Because we can aspire to those attributes of power and majesty does not mean that we should do so without zikr. Remember